Uh, well, this movie, The Conformist, uh, firstly, let me tell you this movie when it was initially released, they took it its face value and uh, there was a mixed reaction. But later on, over a period of time, the most genius directors, the best brains, the best intellectual slowly started understanding its meaning. And that is what the classics are all about, that every 10 years they change their color from platinum to gold to about this movie. I think I'll go more in detail. Before that, as I always say, let us firstly try to understand time and space. The time is the time period which it covers is post First World War, and it goes right up to the Second War. Now, what happens in Italy during that period is, after the First War, the economy of Italy is really, very much bad in shape, and unemployment at the highest level, and there was a total paralysis in the government, and that was the period when both the communist forces and fascist forces came into play, and eventually the fascist forces took over the reins in Italy. To start with, it was not exactly the pure fascism which was there, and to start with, in fact, the economy started doing pretty well. He was well-meaning. He gave free hand to finance minister and all those, and Italy's economy really bounced back. But slowly, as he became powerful and more fascist, as it happens in these kind of societies, fascist societies, there was a privileged class, upper middle class, and the ruling class, who had very luxurious lifestyles, and uh, and that is the period. Basically, this movie captures a period of 30s when it was at peak. Uh, but Bertolucci, if you go to his background, he was primarily a communist. He was a communist at that time. He was part of the communists. Later on, Bertolucci is much later. He was not there during that time. But by leanings, he was a leftist, and therefore he viewed that period very differently, and perhaps correctly also. If you have to choose between fascist forces or communist forces, perhaps socialist or communist forces, you may prefer. I don't know. The interpretation he drew of that period was that all these high societies, their lifestyles, their colors, their fashion, their parties, uh, their exceptionally decorated galleries, all those represented a claustrophobia in fascism, and it was not the real thing. It was a very artificial thing which was not going to last eventually. So generally, initially the people perceived this movie for its cinematography, beautiful scenes. Each scene was considered a painting, and its music, which was really very nice music. And as generally people never miss one thing about Bertolucci's movie, was the sex element of it. And here, one thing is that once you take it on a face value, the picture looks very different. Once you take the subtext value, the picture looks very different. When you Bertolucci, first of all, as a director, he was very different from, let's say, last movie you saw, A Separation. His approach towards movie making was very different. His father was a poet, he himself was very poetic, and therefore his movies were poetic expressions, and poetry involves music. Poetry involves is very nice, beautiful images on screen, visuals, and therefore, in fact, in his own words, he used to say that I'm a child director on play. I'm a dreamer. When I imagine movies, when I write my screenplays, I look into the keyhole as a child, what my elders are doing, what they're doing in bed, what they're doing outside, what are they talking, with that curiosity. So he creates a very dreamy world in his movies, and he makes full use of cinematography, music, visuals. But I can tell you one thing, people underestimate him on his theme, particularly I'll say in this movie, The Conformist. His underlying theme is that we all, majority of the people are conformist, some way or the other. Some people try to compromise on their sexuality. They might be oriented differently, they want to look differently for the society. They may not like family, but they would like to give a family face if he is a politician. Sometime back, perhaps a family, in US also, the most of the presidential candidates show, yes, we are a good family, and so those pretensions. And those, or let's say I'm a very religious person, I go to the church the mandir every, you conform because you want to be seen as a part of the mainstream. People are conformists in their own way. In this movie, the central character is a conformist for two reasons. One is that he has doubt about his sexuality. One. Second is he thinks politics is not very important. What is important is what is the current politics, and am I in the mainstream? And if I'm not so particular about my politics, I'll pick up what suits me at that point of time. And therefore, in this movie, in the periods, he was a communist. In periods, he was part of fascist forces. And later on, when the fascist forces were destroyed, he became a part of democracy very effectively. So he changed. So he was a conformist. But that was a symbolic thing. If you look around, that theme exists everywhere, in every part of the world. So now here, that is one thing, and that is very universal. That is how this movie appealed to all countries, all people, because they could identify, because all of us, if we look into, we are conformists somewhere there. Here now we talk of the narrative, the conformist, how he brings it on the screen. Here, can you go back to the earlier slide? Yeah, I mean, you must be thinking, why this image has been put for the conformist. Actually, this painting, Michelangelo's painting, The Calling of Saint Matthew, Vittorio Storaro, when he was visualizing, Bertolucci wanted the cinematography to be the central character in the movie, not the hero. And how he wanted is that the lights and shadows, the cinematography should represent the times. That is to say, it should be very beautiful, but it should also at the same time in that trap should give the feel of claustrophobia. So that was one part. Second, lights and shadows should reflect the times and also the mental state of the central character or the characters. And he was just visualizing what is the format of cinematography he should pick up. And then he came across this painting. If you see the line going there, falling, basically here Saint Matthew has been called by the Christ he saw as a communist. That I forget Saint Matthew's, I forget the Christ, but to me that light is energy, and whatever obstructs light is stopping energy within you. So in the entire movie you will find that light and shadows play a very, very important role. They reflect the mental state of the central character or some of the characters during certain sequences as it progresses. You will also find that it is not straight light and shadows which play in the movie. You will find a lot of asymmetrical lights coming in a particular space, which shows that the person is confused. Though there is a light coming which can really change him, but it is this kind of light which can change if the light doesn't find symmetry, it is zigzag, then that means the guidance from within is not coming proper. The confused state remains. So that kind of a complex lighting concept, shadow concept, was first time in any movie. And that is why this is counted among the top 6, 7 all-time great cinematography pieces. In fact, in some of the scenes, towards the end of the movie, where there is the assassination of the communist professor, the trapment which is shown there is in the forest, and the forest logs, the light is coming through the forest, and those forest stems look like prison rods, and symbolically they show that he's caught and something is going to happen. The beauty is that doing all this, every scene you'll find coming as a painting, visual delight. At the same time, as I said, if you minutely notice, there is a claustrophobia. There is no clear sun in most of portions of the movie. And the gallery spaces, the drawing rooms, all that they have shown very clearly shows fascist regime period aristocracy. Now, another element which has been very beautifully put in there is Magherini's costumes. In fact, this movie was lapped up by Americans because of the kind of costumes it's used, but some of the critics also had run it down that yes, good, fashionable, you go and see some good fashion, some good music, there's nothing in it otherwise. I mean, some of the critics rate like that, but yes, really very nice fashion elements. In fact, Magherini was picked up from France. He picked up a French designer because he thought that is the French element if we put in, because the Italian aristocracy during 30s preferred the French viewers. So that is how she was chosen. These are the quotes which he has himself given. I mean, he self-admitted that, look, I don't leave messages, I don't give any moral of the story, that is not my way of, you draw your own inferences out of the subtext you are seeing or the direct narration which you are seeing. I am not the one, that is for the postmaster to do. Next slide. And he was very proud, you know, that this movie was considered a milestone by the big three, Francis Coppola, Scorsese, Steven Spielberg. These people admitted that from this era of filmmaking, this was the biggest influence they had. So that was something which he really carried and with a very good memory, and he was very happy with the outcome of the movie. I hope this late evening will be enjoyable for you. Wish you a very nice movie watching. See you tomorrow in the morning. Thank you very much.